Well, what can I say? Happy Uterus Liberation Day anniversary to me. So, today marks 1 year since I had a hysterectomy, abdominal surgery, and I am going to share with you some of the lessons that I've learned, some of the challenges that I've faced in the last year, and where I'm heading now in relation to that. So, first of all, why the need for a hysterectomy? So many women around the world have hysterectomies for so many different reasons. And the reason I needed a hysterectomy was that I had uterine fibroids. So, uterine fibroids are non cancerous tumours like growths. Meatballs are one way that I like to describe them. They have also been described as alien babies, that they can maybe feel quite intrusive on you. And there's been two occasions where I've had to have surgery because of these fibroids. So the first time was back in 2013 when I had a myomectomy, which was to remove fibroids. And then I didn't expect this, but then they returned. So sometime later, it's probably maybe been about 2 years before I had my hysterectomy that I noticed that they'd come back. And then it just felt inevitable that hysterectomy was my direction to go in. So part of the thing about uterine fibroids is that people can have them without really knowing. They can be really, really small, or they can end up being like really, really big and have big impact on you. So the ones that I had were probably about the size of an orange, up to about that sort of size, 6 centimeters type thing. And I had multiple fibroids on my uterus. And some people have maybe just one significant one and it's huge. I don't know, not that big, but maybe huge anyway, and they're heavy. And other people might have many, 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 and lots of complications. And where they are in your uterus can affect the symptoms that you had. And so I'm not giving any sort of scientific or advice about that, but just purely reflecting on my own experiences. So I felt like very tired a lot of the time, a lot of really heavy periods, which led to anemia, which led to exhaustion a lot of the time. And that really impacted on my hobbies. I was very much into running at the time and had to cancel a lot of races, had to cancel hikes that I was going on. And I just thought I was unfit. So leading up to the fibroids coming back, I just thought that I was unfit, that I'd maybe not trained very well, or that I'd maybe been eating too much rubbish food, too much sugar, for instance. But actually, it was down to fibroids, and it was down to like that impacting on my energy levels. So I literally went to the doctors and said, I feel like I've got fibroids again. I feel like I can feel them. I can literally feel them through my skin, and I feel like I've got fibroids. And not long after, I had a scan, and then they said, yes, you're right, you've got fibroids. And it's only because I'd had them before that I knew that this was the case. But previously, when I was really ill and didn't know about fibroids, I was having test after test after test. I was having to go to so many different hospital appointments, and eventually they diagnosed me with fibroids. And the ironic thing about it is that there's a family history of fibroids, and I hadn't really made the connection, or that there was maybe a thought that it could be, but because I'd not experienced this before, and all our bodies are different, I went through all of these different tests. So lots of things about my digestive system, lots of things about my heart as well. Did loads of cardiology appointments to see why I was so tired. So then discovering that I had fibroids and multiple polyps as well was really challenging, but also there was a sense of optimism that I was living in a country where I was able to have surgery on the NHS, and whilst there was a long wait for it, that it was thinking that I'd be able to feel much better afterwards and get the support that I needed. So had my myomectomy, ended up growing back, then went into having the support of the hysterectomy and that. So we're talking, a year ago. And in the lead up to having a hysterectomy, I can't kind of dismiss this, but I was so unbelievably anxious about the uncertainty of this. I had a big anxiety about the general anaesthetic, and the reason for that is that even though I'd had anaesthetic a few times before, I felt really worried that I was much older and had put on a bit of weight as well. And I was worried that the anaesthetic would impact on me adversely. So I was having to do a lot of work to manage my anxiety. And as an art therapist, I turned to art naturally, but I was finding myself questioning whether some of the things that I would help other people with, whether I could do them myself. And I was having to reach out to people. So I was having to I was having to kind of check in with people and explain how anxious I was, and their reassurances weren't really helping me because it was such an uncertain thing. So what did help in that lead up to my surgery was, in fact, kind of mindfulness and making art. And I was doing lots of things in my sketchbook, lots of expressive art activities, but also something that did help me, that doesn't necessarily help other people, and I wouldn't necessarily see that as advice for other people, was to watch and listen to videos about the hysterectomy process and about general anaesthetic and about kind of what happens. Because for me, knowledge was power. For other people, that could be even harder. For people, they could feel like more stressed and more anxious because it could evoke lots and lots of like different fantasies, and they could go down rabbit holes as to different things that might happen or might not happen. And so actually, on the whole, I wouldn't recommend that as a way of managing, but I would be advising you to take walks, go out for walks, do mindfulness meditations. I was listening to sleep recordings, sleep apps and visualizations, and there was one, and I wouldn't be able to find it now, I don't think, but there was one that was about there was a visualization about managing the surgery, and a lot of the dialogue that I was listening to in this meditation was about being in control of my breathing and trusting the surgeon and trusting the nurses and the support, and trusting that it would work and it would be really, really effective, and I would feel significantly better afterwards. And that in itself helped me to feel that I could trust other people and trust that it was the right thing for me. So that really calmed my anxiety. And one of the things that I feel really lucky about is that I had support from my family around me. So I live by myself, but then I live locally to a lot of my family. So when after I'd had my surgery, I was able to go and stay at my sister's and stay at my dad's and stay at my mum's. And not everyone has that. Not everyone's in a position where they can have that. And it does come challenges. There are challenges with that because I'm used to my own space, and we don't always kind of see eye to eye. And it can take a lot of effort to lean in and ask for help when you're so used to being independent and so used to being the person that helps other people. But knowing that I had support from people and knowing that I can ask for help was really reassuring. So when it came to the morning of my surgery, I'm based in Leeds, so we went up to the hospital in Leeds, and my sister came with me, and I am so forever grateful that she was there. On one hand, I feel that she could have come and not stayed and gone, but she stuck around like while I was under surgery. I think I was for a good few hours. She stuck around and she did her own thing. And to this day, I don't really know what she did. I think she went for a walk and read a magazine, and like she must have been bored stupid. But I really, really appreciate her being there. And then when I came out of surgery, went into the recovery, was maybe in that recovery space for a good hour. And I remember hearing her voice when I came back onto the ward and just being really comforted by that. And like having that kind of that support and that reassurance made me feel supported, and it made me feel that it was okay, that things were okay, and that actually if I didn't have my sister there, then my experience would have been quite different. But actually, the way that the nurses and the doctors were on that ward meant that I could actually feel okay asking for help and feel okay kind of not being able to do things. So it can be really weird, like not being able to go to the loo, or not being able to just go for a walk, or not being able to sit up properly because it takes so much effort. But then one of the lessons that I kind of learned was that it's okay just to rest, and that it's really important to rest. And when you're feeling exhausted, then that's okay. And I recognize that in a lot of the literature, in a lot of the advice leaflets, which not everyone gets the same sort of information because everyone's personal experience is different. There, it goes up to maybe 6 or 8 weeks, talking about resting and talking about after so many weeks you'll be able to do this, you'll be able to do this, you'll be able to do this. But what people don't talk about is how after 12 weeks you still feel exhausted. After 6 months you might still feel exhausted. There are times now, 1 year post hysterectomy, where I am flat out and exhausted, where my immune system doesn't know where it's coming or going, where my hormones are all over the place. And actually, even though physically there is a time scale when you might appear to be healing physically, emotionally and in terms of your nervous system, that healing can take a lot longer. And that's one of the big things that I've learned from this whole process, from this whole journey, if you like, of thinking that getting back to work in April and starting to be busy and putting a lot of effort into going to the gym and being really motivated at times and then unmotivated at other times. I've just allowed myself to think, well, it's okay if I am exhausted for a lot longer than I expected. And that's one of the things that I'm really reflecting on right now. So something to think about that I've really like leaning back to is that noticing the small things was really important for me. So the small things that other people were doing for me that I was really grateful for, and the small things that I was able to do bit by bit. So the first time I went for a walk, or the first time I went to the toilet and did a number 2, for instance, and a number 1, they were big significant moments when your body's starting to heal and your body's starting to get back to normal after the general anaesthetic has kind of worked its magic. And then things like showering. So when I was at my sister's, we had a shower that was inside the bath. So there was no way on this earth that I could get in and out of the bath by myself. We set up like a bit of a contraption where I sat on a chair and she with a cushion on it and then like a bit of a slippery mat, and I sat with my dressing gown on and she helped me lift my legs up, and I spun round, and there was a whole, I had to just be vulnerable then. I had to just let go, and it hurt. It hurt. I was in a lot of pain, and there were tears, but there was also a real appreciation of doing that, because I felt so much better. Just reaching for the flannel off the floor was impossible, but then I used that to clean my feet because I couldn't bend over, or things like that. And then a week after I was discharged from hospital, I managed to have a shower by myself. So I just kind of, I wonder if I could lift my leg up high enough to step into the bath. And I wonder if I could manage to do this. So my sister had gone to the pub or gone out for a walk or something. And I decided to have a face mask, but then I thought my hair just feels like really horrible and scruffy, and I need a shower. But so I, out of necessity and out of like urgency really and curiosity, I put that effort in to have that shower. And I'm so grateful that I tried it and pushed myself out of my comfort zone, and I set things up in such a way that, like, the towel and everything, it was like a military operation, like where I was putting the towel and where everything was. But then I managed to do it, and it just felt like I'd climbed a mountain. I was celebrating to everyone. I was on the phone to everybody. I was like, I can't believe I've just had a shower by myself, unassisted. And when I look back at that moment and I think about some of the things now that I can do that I couldn't do then, and I find myself just taking some of these things for granted, taking for granted that that I can go to the gym, even though I might not choose to go, and take it for granted that I can be back at work and I'm driving and doing all of those things. And it's so easy to think, well, they were just little things. Like, of course, you're going to be able to do that. But at the time, there were such big, significant things, and it was so hard to do because your body is just, your body, when you've had major surgery, your body is just really not different. It's so different from how it was before. And so actually remembering those little things and recognizing that progress takes time. It's not linear. You're going to be exhausted. It takes time. Doing those small things can make a difference. So another thing that I really learned is that my values don't always align with other people's, but I can still connect with people. So there were times when I was feeling like really frustrated at living at my family's house, when they maybe had different conversations about different things, when they might have wanted to watch a certain thing on TV, or when they had a certain belief or value that was different to mine. But then actually what that did, rather than me thinking, I don't like it here, like, I appreciated being there, I liked my independence, but I also like to connect with people. It made me really reflect on who I am, what I want out of life, what I enjoy in life, what my values are. I really value freedom. I value my independence, but I really appreciate connection. So that balance is really important, and really value having people that are on my wavelength to talk to. So one of the things that I didn't share earlier about the surgery experience was that there was an amazing lady who I've become really good friends with since, and she was on the bed opposite me, and we had our surgery on exactly the same day. She was in before me. I met her afterwards properly, and like, there's something really important about that connection. And so happy post-hysterectomy anniversary to her over the road, as she was formerly called, like when I couldn't remember her name, and it was just pointing to the bed. opposite me. It was like her over the road, and that was like a bit of a fun name that I called my friend. So sometimes you get these connections out of the blue, and sometimes like these, almost like this serendipity that you'd never know what's going to happen. You never know those sorts of things. So, what else? What else do we need to think about in terms of this? So there was lots of things about the recovery itself. This is a really important thing. So I've talked about taking time to pause, talked about appreciation of the small things and the small actions taken. Let's talk about the psychological impact of having a hysterectomy. The stuff that people don't mention, the stuff that people may minimize or may experience in a very personal way that is really hard to share. So when you have a hysterectomy, of course, you've got a huge surgery. You're taking away a big part of your body. Like for a woman, you're taking away the uterus and its ability to create children, create a baby, and also so that in itself can have a big impact, as well as the impact of your hormone levels changing. So I kept my ovaries, so I was still producing hormones, but then for the first few days afterwards, or first weeks afterwards, they weren't really working that well. And I've since, the levels are all up and down, because I'm in that position in life, that time in life where my hormones have changed anyway. So starting to take HRT for that and having a year where it's all been quite up and down, that's been really challenging, because the impact of lower estrogen levels on your mental health and on anxiety, on emotional well-being, on your physical well-being as well, is really huge. And everyone experiences perimenopause in a different way. But what I noticed post-hysterectomy was more than the hormones, but almost like an unexpected grief process. So there are times when I have literally felt like I've lost my sense of who I am, and lost like a real kind of struggle with that grief. Now, I don't have any children, and circumstances led me that way. There weren't times in my life where I thought, right, I do not want to have children, but there equally weren't times when I thought, I desperately want to have children. Let's set the wheels in motion to do that. And so actually there's never been the circumstances in place, the right partner, the right setup to have children. So when I had a hysterectomy, I was approaching this knowing that I wouldn't be able to have children, but also thinking that would be okay, because at 46, I think that there's probably quite a low likelihood of having birth children anyway. So I don't know the percentages of likelihood of pregnancy at 46, but from a logical point of view, that made sense to me. And because of all the sort of horrendous symptoms, and because of the intensity of those, I knew that that was my way that I needed to go. However, what I was finding, and what hit me 6 months later, just as the summer holidays broke out, as everyone online, like the online space can be really damaging for you. Sometimes it's quite good, sometimes you just need to step away. But what I was noticing was that the messages were all about children. It was all about how awful the summer holidays are, because, oh my gosh, my children are at home and I'm not going to be able to get my stuff done. And I found that really triggering, in all honesty. And I didn't realise at the time. I just thought maybe I was being a bit horrible. Maybe I wasn't being a nice person. Maybe it was my hormones. But what I've since realised is that that was a grieving process, and that was me grieving not being able to have children. And that's something that people don't talk about. people do not talk about this when it comes to hysterectomy. And I think it's because maybe people do, but maybe I wasn't paying attention. But I think it's because a lot of people, when they do have a hysterectomy, they may have already had children, or a lot of people may have been going down the IVF fertility route, or a lot of people may have chosen not to have children. But I didn't expect to kind of feel such an intense grief. I think grief is the right word, and when we talk about grief and think about grief being reflective of the experience of loss rather than purely about the experience of loss of a person, which we would sort of refer to as more of a bereavement, sometimes those experiences can feel really disenfranchised, like you shouldn't be experiencing that, like you should be grateful for where you are, or all of those kind of things. And what I've learned to do is to lean into the sadness, lean into my grief, allow myself to feel it, feel the feelings. And I was making art at times. There were times when I've not been making art because I felt so stuck. And then times when I've leaned back into that. And no amount of rationalization or talking through it or trying to make sense of it would have helped. But what I needed to do, and what is maybe part of that process continually, is to have a sense of acceptance of the feelings and the experience and what's coming up for me mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and where I want to lean towards, where I want to be, how I want to make use of this and learn from this and help other people. And connecting with communities of like-minded people has been really helpful. Connecting with other childless people, connecting with other people that have had hysterectomies, connecting with a world where people may feel that they are doing a certain thing in life that they think that they should do, but then feeling pressure to do that, but then at the same time thinking, well, that's not my direction. I'm not doing this. I feel a bit like an outcast and feel a bit like I'm taking the road less travelled, and it's quite lonely at times. So some of those things is like where I'm at the moment, and what feels important to do is for me to be striking the balance between my own healing and my own physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual healing, and stepping into a role as a therapist and artist where I can help other people, where I can be containing and supportive for other people, where I can be a voice for other people and help other people to have their own voices in matters where they might feel too overwhelmed to have a voice altogether. So this is where I'm at the moment. And this is why I find the PACE model in A New Pace so helpful, because there are times when I've needed to pause. There are times when I've needed to take massive action and dramatic action. To an outsider, it might seem like the smallest of a thing. And times when I've had to embrace those really, really small changes. There are times when I've leaned into my creativity, and times when I've set deliberate, intentional actions that have meant for me to really connect with who I am, connect with my true self. And that in itself has been really empowering. And that in itself is where we're heading now. So every time you make a choice that is right within the moment, it can be so easy in the future to look back and think, why did I do that? Why did I do that? Like, was that the right thing to do? And to question who you are and question like the decisions that you've made and the actions that you've taken, and wonder what's going on in the future for you. But have some trust in yourself, and that belief that every time we take an action, if we're kind of trusting the universe and trusting like our own paths and our own intuition, and that every decision that we make, sometimes it can feel like there's no other choice. Other times it can feel like a really deliberate, empowered decision. But that is how we make it at the moment. And it's so easy to look back in a year's time and think, should I have really done that? Should I have maybe like done a more natural way of reducing my fibroids? What would have happened if I ate more vegetables or went down like a diet where I kind of really helped to kind of would they have shrunk? Maybe not, maybe not. But actually being able to trust the decisions that you're making and trust that process and trust the healing process is super important. So that is just a little reflection and ramble of where I'm at. It's so important for you to be able to lean into your own experiences and have access support from different people, the physical support, practical support. Allow yourself to feel the hard stuff, and sometimes things are tough, but also to be able to, it takes courage to be vulnerable, and it takes courage to feel the feelings, but and it takes courage to take action when you don't feel like doing something, and take action when you might not feel like you've got loads and loads of energy. And making plans for the future when you're feeling exhausted can be really, really hard. But this is just a message from me 1 year post operation that keep going. It's all a journey. Life's not linear. There's no rule book when we start life as a woman. You need to step into whatever challenges come at you and trust the process. And if you like this and you want to hear more about any of these other pieces, other different things, then let me know, and I'll try and kind of go into a bit more detail about some of the different areas and some of the different ideas that I've talked about here. That's all for now, and I shall speak to you soon, and take care. Bye bye bye.